Guys, Lyrical Monasterio 2 will be out this Friday, and even though it's so far been a bit of a sleeper reveal, we still gotta make decks for it, right? We're still making preliminary decks for it because, you know, there's at least 2 new decks and a bunch of old decks that got very, very slightly upgraded. Yeah? So yeah, let's kind of start with the new decks first. Let's go with Mimish or Friends. This deck is basically just all around. You make a board full of friends, and then your Vanguard can attack twice, and that's really, really cool. Kind of. The amount of friend enablers in the deck is not very high. So you have to play like some really junky cards that give friendship, right? Or make friends, right? So this is the main grade 3. It's a CB1 restand, get plus 5k and a -1 drive, so it's okay. It's not that bad. But then, like, we're starting to go into things that just make friends, right? So I guess this one is kind of, okay, right? When it comes into play, you can counterblast 1 and, you know, you can call a card from your hand that is less than your Vanguard's grade. And then if you do, you can draw cards. So this is like, you know, remember those old Allens and stuff in like a Paladin deck? You just kind of call things out that you're going to call out anyway to just kind of draw. You don't really use that much CB except for the Vanguard, but, you know, you get to drive check 3 times. So, you know, just get some heals, right? The other good card, I guess, is this. It gets 2k for each of your cards and, well, each of your friends, right? So ideally, when it, like, you hit like plus 10k with it, so it hits 20, and it also makes friends. So it's a nice combo. But apart from that, we're starting to go into the stuff that does, like, this is a friend maker pretty much. The rest of the effect is pretty jank, but we can make it work. It's just that if you have another friend, you have another friends, right? It gets 2k, so it's like a 10k beater. But mainly, it's just there to give friends because your other stuff that give friendship is just like not really great. And then comes like the filler slots. So basically, there's basically 2 cards here. We got the grade 1 Uriah. If you boost a friend, it gets 5k, so it's like a 13k boost. And then this one is just, if this card is a friend, it gets boost, so it's a 13k boost. So these are just kind of matching with like the 10k beater, so it is 23. That's like a nice number. Otherwise, you can boost other things like other 2s, and they all make kind of friends. And then the other card that kind of draws is just this one. So if another card is placed in the same spot, and you have 3 or more other friends, you can counterblast 1 and draw a card. So generally, right, you have like this, that uses CB as well. I guess there's like 3 cards which can use CB here. Maybe you just don't use this much. But yeah, that's how you kind of get enough hands and kind of close it off. At least your kind of side columns hit decently okay. And then we don't run any draws because I think we draw enough and trigger enough. We just run fronts and get fat and beat. And we have 30k shields, right? So overall, just it's okay. It's not like super amazing or anything, but it's just good to have. The real Copian deck that's coming out is this deck. It's called Powerful. Well, the keyword is powerful, but the reality is, I think it's pretty bad, right? Overall, like when you think of like decks that go to the extreme, right? Like a Bastion, when you're forced to run an extreme amount of grade 3s, those decks can either be super amazing or super bad. And this is, I definitely think Powerful feels like it's on the super bad line, because the entire idea of this deck is that you have 0 soul. But then the grade 3, right, the main grade 3 that you're running, Erminia, she also requires you to have no face-up counterblast as well. So you have to have expended all your resources to get a very mediocre stand effect, which is pretty much Bastion's effect, except you don't get 10k from it. But it also minuses like a counterblast for your next counterblast use for the turn. So, I don't know. It seems pretty bad. Some of the key cards in this deck is basically a lot of cards that like get effects, right? That get rid of cards from the soul, but it's not a cost. So, for example, Signy, her effect is that if you have 0 cards in the soul, you can counterblast 1 and then give one of your other units. When it boosts something, if you have 0 soul, you can counterblast 1 and give one of your other units 5k for the turn. What a great effect, right? But a second effect is when at the end of the battle that it boosted, if you have a powerful Vanguard, you can stand it. You stand it. It's mandatory, and then you like you can pop. You pop a card from your soul. But again, if you don't have a card to pop, you just do as much of the effect as you can. So overall, you need to combo this you want to combo this with the 3, because then you stand the thing in front of it, and then it gets another attack with a boost, right? Just like Bastion, except Bastion wasn't a 2-card combo. It just required 1 card there that attacked already, and you stand it, and it attacks and has like an extra 10k, right? This one you need like this card and another card, and then you boost the attack, and then you stand the card in front, and oh yay, that's so bad. I think that's terrible. The other notable 3 is this. This is a powerful card as well. If you have 0 cards in your soul, you can counterblast 1, and it gains the following effects for this battle. So when it hits, yeah, you can draw a card. Remind this is attacking into a Vanguard, right? It's attacking, so it has to hit a Vanguard. And then you also get 5k for the turn. Right, you also get 5k for the turn. No, actually, you give 5k to another unit. So you would give this to your grade 1, which stands, and then you get to double dip, right? But then, like, afterwards, you can stand this and attack with it, and then you don't need a counterblast anymore because of Erminia's effect, the grade 3, your Vanguard. And you get a free on hit, and you get to give another card like 5k. But yeah, you kind of do expect that because you're expending counterblast for it, and it's a multi-card combo compared to just Bastion's or Freelo combo, right? The other notable grade 2 as well is like this one. This one is when it comes into play during the main phase, you can counterblast 1 and pick a card from your soul and call it to an empty rearguard circle. And then for each card in your soul, you are forced to discard a card. So ideally, you only have 1 card in your soul and you call it out, and then nice. You don't discard anything. And this, I guess this like solves things like the Persona Ride issue and all that, where you like Persona Ride and then, oh no, there's a card in the soul, I'm not powerful anymore. Yeah. And then her powerful effect is if you attack into a grade 3 Vanguard and you have 0 soul, it gets 5k. So it's just a 15k beater for the turn. So it's not super bad. Now those are basically like the key cards in the deck. The rest of the deck, you kind of fill it up with a bunch of junk. This grade 1 is just when it attacks, if your opponent's Vanguard is a grade 3, it gets like 5k for the battle, right? And you also pop a card from your soul. So it just kind of gets rid of your soul, right? Just gets rid of your soul. Basically, there's a lot of things that gets rid of your soul. To fill out the fillers in this deck, we just run one of the, like 4 of these old grade 1s that can give a unit 10k. So you can give something that you're intending to stand 10k, and it's, double dip, right? Double dipping on the 10k power. And then to fill out the stuff, like the rest of the slots, we're running Sweet X Sweet, which is the new order. It's a CB1 on play. You go top 5 of the deck, pick one of the units from there and call it to the rearguard circle, and nice. So this is how you get your key cards out, and then you can dig for like some of your grade 1s to give power, and also use up every single card in your damage zone. Yeah, pretty much that. For this lineup, I ran like 7 crits, 4 draws, 4 10k draws. And yeah, that's... I personally don't think this deck is like that great. It feels a bit scuffed when you compare it to a lot of the powerhouses in BTO4 right now. But yeah, that's how it is. That's how it is. Moving on into like some old decks. So this is the Loro deck. As you can see, this deck pretty much has 0 changes. Because I look at a lot of the new cards for this deck and just go, why would I run this? Right? Why would I run this? There's like a grade 2 that if you play this order, like if you sing this order, right, she gets 10k. But then what happens if you don't sing it? If you think of when you sing this grade 2 order, it is usually never a time when she would truly shine, right? So your first grade 3 turn, usually you're not singing this. You're singing the grade 1, and then so that's just an 8k beater, and it's just wasting space, right? When you do sing it with a Persona Ride, it's hitting 28. That's pretty nice. But then you'll go to an end game situation where a lot of your stuff is sung, and you might not be seeing that. So that just becomes like a super dead draw. So eventually, it just comes back to running like either the grade 1 or the grade 2 that hits 13, right? So back to that. And the only thing you really change is, hey, you can put in like you can put in 3 of the new 10k draws. That's pretty much, you don't even run the crits. You don't even run the crits, like the soul in crits, because you want that 5k. Because in certain situations, you're just gonna throw down some triggers at some time when like, you know, like near the end of the game sometimes. And a 4k is worse than a 5k. That's kind of it. Well, there will be situations when the 4k is worse than the 5k. So yeah, you don't really have a soul problem with this deck as well, so there's just actually just no point in running the crit soul. Clarissa, also another deck that really doesn't have much changes because you have to run every single urns correct, and then you have 3 slots to play with. Now the 3 slots are actually okay now. So a lot of people ran the 30k shield order, which is still great. But now we're running 2 of this new grade 3. So this one is an act ability. So if you have 5 different types of urns correct cards in the field, you may rest this card, pick an order card from the drop zone and add it to your hands, and then put this card to the bottom of your deck. So overall, like, the problem with this deck is at some point in time, you're going to run out of orders, right? Unless you have every single order, then good stuff, right? But when you do run out of orders, this turns into that order. But also, if you have enough of your order that you want to play, you can always salvage this one, because you can salvage any order. So you can spam the 30k order when you are set, and that's just extra defense, right? Apart from that, the rest of the deck is just the same. Moving on, we have Willista. Now, Willista is a bit weird. There's a bunch of things we want to try with the deck. The key cards that we really got was just these new grade 3s. So this grade 3 allows us to kind of either get power or restand. But the restand is very limited, right? You have to Soul Blast this specific gem, and then you counterblast one, and you have to bottom deck the back row middle column rear guard. So you can't do like 5 attacks with this, you can only ever do 4. But ideally, with her, she will hit big by herself. She'll hit 28, and then with a Persona Ride, it'll hit 38. And at least you're somehow getting a bit of that 4th attack in, right? The other grade 3 that we're running is when this card is like discarded from your deck or from your hands. You have a Willista Vanguard, you can CB1, and then get a gem from the drop zone, and then add it to your hand, right? And if you search from the deck, you shuffle the deck. So, you can either search from the deck or the drop zone just for a gem. All right, and then the other grade 2, we run one of the other grade 2, and that is pretty much just to get more gems sometimes. So that's pretty nice. It's pretty nice, just extra gems. The other thing that we're also running is one of this grade 1, and this is just if you have 3 gems in your drop zone, it gets 5k. So just nice 13k boost. Because you don't really have many boosts with this deck. That's pretty much it. So having just like the 5th slot is pretty nice. But otherwise, it's pretty much just old Willista, except sometimes you get an extra attack. But I think there's a lot to work with here. It's definitely better than before, right? It's definitely better than before. And there's just there'll probably be some tweaking, like the numbers you need to play out with the gems now that there's different ways to get them. It's very grade 3 heavy as well. It's very grade 3 heavy, so like if you want to rush more of this deck, you probably have to take some of these out. But I'm still running like these new grade 3s just to give them a test and see how good they really, really are, right? Next we have is Feltyrosa. Feltyrosa actually has gotten some very, very decent buffs with this set. I think the limiting factor right now for Felty is just the counterblast. The soul problems have kind of been fixed. We got this new grade 1, which is very interesting. It's just when you place a ghost unit in the same column as this, in the rear guard circle in the same column as this card, you can get a Feltyrosa from the drop zone and put it into your soul. So you'll be like soul blasting like your grade 2 and 1 Feltyrosas, which is why you're now more inclined to play them, or your Persona Road Feltyrose. And that's just like an extra free resource every single turn. And it just feels good doing it, right? Yeah? So now you just only have to worry about Counterblast. The other new card we got here I don't know the name. It's like Detrained or something like that. But she solves a lot of issues too. So when it comes into play in the rearguard circle, if your Vanguard is your grade 3 Feltyrosa, you can Soul Blast 1 and then grab a card that is not her from your drop zone, ghost normal unit from the drop zone, and call it to an empty rearguard circle. So if this comes out during the battle phase, you can kind of fill up your other rearguard circle as well that is empty, which is very, very nice. But this also triggers your old Ingrid. So Ingrid, when she comes into play apart from your hands, you can countercharge one. So that actually helps mitigate the counter blast cost as well. So that's very nice. She also has a second effect, is that at the end of battle, you put it to the bottom of your deck, which makes an empty rearguard circle, which is exactly what you want to do with Feltyrosa. So basically, this card solves like the two cards that we basically see help solve a lot of issues. The first one, Bettina solves the soul issue, and then Ditrine solves the countercharge issue, right? Well, help solve the countercharge issue. With more like, since you have like crits as well, like Solen crits, you can also run well, I'm actually just testing this one. You can run the old grade 1, which is just like a Soul Blast 2 and draw a card, right? Soul Blast 2, draw a card. Just kind of to help you get more hand, right? Get more hands. And then we still run three of the Soul Blast 2, Eleanor, right? But you could probably up that count a bit more if you really, really want to. But yeah, apart from that, like the grade 1 and the grade 2 is just insane, very, very good, and just really, really helps the deck out. And the rest of the deck is just pretty simple, because they're just, overall, they used to be some really, really good cards that'll help solve your soul issues and make multiple attacks and make empty spots. We don't really have to play any of your grade 1s that come out now, unfortunately, like still stick. But if they do, you can kind of move them to the back next turn, or just kind of play over them with like great like stuff that goes away, which is like the most important thing in the deck. So that's nice. We have White Wing Alestiel as well. So White Wing Alestiel did get like a few decent cards as well. So firstly, we have a new grade 3. This one is just when it attacks for the battle, it gets 10k, and then at the end of the battle, you can put it into your soul. There's not really any soul issues, but just making more powerful attacks with this deck is pretty good, because the game is still about just making 3 columns that are relatively big, and then they all have crits, right? They all have crits, and just forcing your opponent to guard. We have a new grade 1 as well, so this is the White Wing grade 1. When it comes into play from your hand during the main phase, you can counterblast 1, and then grab a card that's not named Heriel or herself from the drop zone with a White Wing ability, and then call it to an empty rearguard circle. So you can basically call everything that is important, right? You can call your main piece, which Elimial, the old grade 1 that gives a bunch of crits. Or you can call like your grade 3s, right? You can call like the important grade 3s to set up for next turn or anything like that. But apart from that, the deck really hasn't changed much. Just make big columns, give them all crits, and hope for the best, right? And then Astesice, right? Astesice. So I think this deck probably got the most changes, and it's kind of been a bit more streamlined. Before this was like the hybrid deck, where you put in a bunch of random stuff just to make a lot more multi-attacks. But now you can kind of more focus on just going straight to grade 4 and then just making easy multi-attacks that way, right? You can see that we don't run the grade 2 that calls into empty, because that actually requires you to run that only works with the grade 3 Kairi. So we've kind of cut it out, because there's now kind of different ways to make multi-attacks as well. So let's kind of look at it. So let's talk first about the grade 4 Astesice X Live Kairi. So her first effect is a continuous effect, and for each card that just comes into play, well, all your rearguards that come into play get 5k, right? So everything hits a bit bigger. And then the second effect is very, very important. So when you attack, you can, if your soul has a Kairi in its name, you can bounce 2 of your rearguards, up to 2 of your rearguards, but then you call 2 cards from your hand onto the rearguard circle. Now, this effect is actually mandatory, so you can bounce 0, but then you still have to call 2. So that can kind of be really, really annoying, because you don't get infinite value, right? You don't get infinite value. But something that you can do is, this is like the simplest way to make 5 attacks. There's no CB requirement. You have triple drive the deck, so you're still like you're getting back 2 cards and then calling 2 cards down. So it's kind of like a net 0. But then you kind of trigger a few other effects too, right? And they all get 5k, so that's kind of nice. But some of the new cards that are working with this is this new grade. You can see like our ride line is a bit strange, right? Because we're running all straight up the Astesice ride line. And we're also running 4 of the grade 2 and even 3 of the grade 3. Because one of the things is that like grade 4 decks are cool when you ride grade 4, but they become really bad when you don't. And then at least with grade 3 Kairi, you can still make multi-attacks with her. You can still Persona Ride. She's still a Kairi name, which is kind of important. And she still works with the new cards. So you have a lot of cards you can kind of use with the new... You just have a lot of functionality overall. If you have the grade 4, that's great. If you don't and you have multiple Persona Ride grade 3s, that's still fine, right? That's still fine. It just works. So the key card, I guess, that kind of makes it all work is this new I think it's a Lapram, right? Because I thought she was a ram, but I think she's a dog, right? I think she's a dog. But yeah, when she is called to the rearguard circle, if you have an Astesice Vanguard, right, you can call an Astesice grade 2 or lower Astesice from your soul, and then call it into an empty rearguard circle as rest. But if you call it during the battle phase, the called unit stands. So what you'd like do is you'd attack with a card that's unboosted, and then you'd attack with a column that is like fully boosted, right? Or you'll attack with like basically 2 unboosted attacks, so like an empty spot. And then when your grade 4 Kairi attack should bounce your two front row cards, and then you call something like you call 2 cards down, and then one of them being the Lapram, which will call a grade 2 Astesice from your soul out, and then bam, you have like 5 attacks, right? And then you can put all the triggers. You can kind of put all the triggers onto like the back row or whatever, because this also works. This does work with the grade 3, right? This does work with the grade 3. The grade 3 Astesice on a Persona Ride does require you to call like a front and back. So yeah, this kind of just works fine. And that's also why we're running so many grade 2 Astesices as well. But yeah, that's basically how you make the multi-attacks, which is pretty cool. But how do you get more Astesices into Soul? And that is where the grade 3 comes into play. So when you play this onto the rearguard circle, you can grab a Astesice grade 2 or lower normal unit from your drop zone, and then put it into your Soul. And then if you put it in, you can counterblast 1. And this unit gets 10k for the turn. So hits big, right? Hits big. So this, in combination with the Lapram, right? But yeah, that's why this 2 combos together, you call you basically just abuse the grade 2 Astesice. Other cards that do work as well is this grade 2. When it's coming to play onto the rearguard circle from your hand, if you have 3 or more rearguards, you can counterblast 1 and draw a card. If you notice, this deck does not run a lot of counterblast, so this kind of fills that slot and lets you draw, which is nice because you bounce and then call them down. If they stay on the field the next turn, you just bounce them back up, call them down. Free cards, right? Free cards. And then the last few slots we have this old not old, this is a new card. When this card is placed and you have an Astesice Vanguard, it gets plus 10k, so it hits 15. Nice, hits big numbers. And then this one is just big shield. So when it's placed on the Guardian Circle, if you have you can reveal a Kairi from your hands, and then this card gets 10k shield, so 15k shield. So you have a lot of shield. But apart from that, pretty simple. Basically, Kairi just makes everything work. It's just so simple. You know, you attack, you bounce cards, you call cards. Yes, 5 attacks, easiest. Before in the old deck, in the old Kairi deck, you can make a lot more. You can make like 7 attacks, I think. That requires you to have a lot of pieces. This one doesn't really ask you to have that many pieces. You just have stuff, and you can kind of make 5 attacks. Like any stuff. Literally any stuff. So yeah, that's pretty cool, right? That's pretty cool. But then I have to say, like, the biggest deck I think that got the most buffs is this like following deck, the bonus deck, right? It's actually Black Wings. Isn't that crazy? I showed you White Wings before, but this is the spicy Black Wing list. And this deck, I'm pretty keen to try out. They gotten some new cards that solve all their issues, right? So the idea behind Black Wings before was that you instead of like plussing power, you minus your opponent's Vanguard. So then your attacks like have more value to them, right? But the problem is before, Black Wings only attacked like, well, I think 3 times and it didn't do much. It was just really, really boring. But now you have this grade 2 that, yeah, if you have an Alestiel Vanguard and you're in Black Wing state, this unit can attack from the back. Well, you can attack a grade 3 Vanguard from the back row. So yeah, that's pretty good, right? You're making multi-attacks on a minus power Vanguard, right? So that's great. That's right. But that's not all. That's not all. Like, they also got this new grade 2 that solves those rare situations when you bind odd things, right? So when it comes to the play, when it comes into the rearguard circle, if you have an Alestiel Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1, and then pick a card from your bind zone and add it to your hand, and then pick a card from your hand and put it into the bind zone, right? So that's good. Null goes to the bind zone, you get it for free, right? Cool times. And then the Blackwing effect is also pretty good too. When this attacks a Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, and then your opponent's grade 3 or higher Vanguard minuses 5k. So it's another minus 5k. So you combine this with the Vanguard circle, the Vanguard attack, right? Remember well, it's not Vanguard attack, but Vanguard effect. This also minuses your opponent's power by 5k. So yeah, that's pretty good. Your opponent's Vanguard is already minus 10k with those two combination, and with multi attacks now, that's heaps of value, right? That's heaps of value. But then remember the old card, the old grade 2, where you have to Soul Blast 3, and then you can pick, and then for every 2 of your Blackwing rearguards, you pick one of your opponent's units and minuses 5. Well, that required Soul Blast 3, right? That required Soul Blast 3, which is pretty heavy. But now you just have a card that's like coming to play Soul Charge 2. So this, we're running 3 of this guy. This kind of solves all the soul issues. There is no soul issue with the deck. And then we kind of combo like the old combo with Emariel, right? So when this card is boosted at the end of the attack, you can bounce a card from you can bounce a card from the field, or you can grab a card from your soul. And if you grab something from soul, you put this card into your soul. So it'll help you tutor for anything you need. We have a lot more soul charging options, and the main way to boost is still with this grade 2 Funnel. And then this card, just when it comes into play, you Soul Charge 1 and it gets boost. So boost, nice, cool. But mainly, like, this is kind of more just setting up. You still want to you're just trying to get the new grade 2. I think it's Pyarl, just to get like way more attacks. And then we have some spicy tech here, right? We have some spicy tech. We still run 2 of LGQL, right? Which is actually a white wing, right? Isn't that crazy? But whenever you bind her, she just triggers both Blackwing and Whitewing. So that's not bad, right? That's not bad. When you mistakenly bind her from your deck, it also triggers it off. It also triggers with the grade 2 as well. So if you let's say you grab a perfect guard, you can also bind this as well, and then bam, you trigger both effects, and then it's time to win, right? So overall, she's like not that bad. If you don't want to run her, then that's fine. You can just run other stuff, more grade 2s. But I think she's pretty good, right? She's pretty good. It's never like a miss to bind her, you know? It's never a miss for that. So overall, I think this deck is actually decent, right? It's actually decent. You have Alestiel just naturally get some cards, right? And then you have multi-attacks now. So I think there is a possibility that this deck like becomes one of the better Lyrical Monastery decks, and definitely I think this might be better than some of the new ones. It's like powerful and things like that. So yeah, it should be pretty interesting. That is all the lists. Remember, these are preliminary lists. A few of these just, you know, because just feel weaker than others, but I'm sure during the course of all your testings and through the next few weeks when people are actually playing the cards, they're going to come up with better lists, right? Better lists, more honed lists in time for the English release of Lyrical Monastery 2. Yeah, so I hope you guys like it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm sure some of these lists you'll definitely have opinions on, and I'll be happy to read your opinions. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye.